Hello, my fellow SanDiegans. My name is Kareem, and I'm a 24-year-old Brooklyn native. I was raised by two Trinidadian parents whom I love very much. I'm grateful they were there to teach me that it's easier to learn from observation rather than experience. I am the man I am today because of them, and I'm eternally grateful. This is why I chose to visit a Navy recruiter my senior year. I didn't feel like college was the right move for me at the time, and I also didn't want to put any more financial burden on my parents. I enlisted in 2001, spent a year in boot camp and schooling, then spent 3 years at Pearl Harbor on board the USS Midway. Words can't express the feeling I got the first time walking down those piers where more than 2,300 United States military servicemen were killed over a span of 2 hours on the morning of December 7th, 1941. You can imagine the devastation and anger that saturated the country. What resulted was us dropping a 9,000-pound uranium bomb over Hiroshima and a 10,000-pound plutonium bomb over Nagasaki. Total casualties between the two cities amassed well over 200,000 Japanese military and civilian lives. This is after a firebombing campaign that ruined 67 Japanese cities and killed 393,000 Japanese people. The problem I've always had with my history classes growing up is that it was so impersonal. It seemed like they were just throwing out dates and events that happened, basically telling us to memorize it for a test, and then we wash our hands of it. Being on those piers made me stop and think about the fact that those 2,300 U.S. military weren't just numbers or casualties of war. They weren't robots that just lived to serve. They were real human beings like you and I. They had families that loved them, pets to take care of, bills, goals, worries and troubles, highs and lows. Being on those piers made me realize that there's a huge difference between learning history, which we struggle with, and learning from history, in which we haven't begun to scratch the surface. Being on those piers made me think of the egregious lack of humanity in warfare. Fast forward 75 years later, when we look back at that time period, do we consider the Japanese surrender a win after having killed and lost hundreds and thousands of lives? No. Do the Japanese people take pride in the attack on Pearl Harbor? Of course not. This is simply because war can never bring peace of mind, only regret. Because these casualties aren't just numbers and statistics, but real people. There's currently a Japanese population of about 225,000 in Hawaii, 1/5 of the state's population. A Japanese population of about 813,000 in California, a little over 1/10 of the state's population. Most importantly, Japan is now considered one of the most pacifistic countries in the world, despite having a strong military and the third largest economy of any country. You just heard my good friend Jennifer speak on where we are as a country now. So my question to you all is, when do we start learning from history instead of just learning history and repeating it like we've been taught? I want to share with you guys a few instances in which I believe we let our veterans down in a huge way. Major John Rucco. He was a Marine Cobra gunship pilot with 75 combat missions in Iraq. Can any of you even fathom what 75 combat missions entails? I know I can. This is a short excerpt I found attached to the picture of him with his family. 3 months after Rucco returned from Iraq feeling numb and depressed, he couldn't sleep. He had lost weight and had nightmares. He was distracted and withdrawn from his 2 sons. One night he promised his wife Kim that he would get help. The next morning he was dead. The 40-year-old Cobra helicopter pilot was based at Camp Pendleton, California, and hanged himself. Daniel Summers. He was a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He was part of Task Force Lightning, an intelligence unit. In 2004 to 2005, he was mainly assigned to a tactical human intelligence team in Baghdad, Iraq, where he ran more than 400 combat missions as a machine gunner in the turret of a Humvee. Interviewed countless Iraqis ranging from concerned citizens to community leaders and government officials, and interrogated dozens of insurgents and terrorist suspects.
Fuck yeah!
In 2006 to 2007, Daniel worked with the Joint Special Operations Command through his former unit in Mosul, where he ran the Northern Iraq Intelligence Center. His official role was as a senior analyst for Levin. On June 10, 2003, Daniel wrote the following letter to his family before taking his life. Daniel was 30 years old. His wife and family have given permission to publish it. I'm sorry that it has come to this. The fact is, for as long as I can remember, my motivation for getting up every day has been so that you would not have to bury me. As things have continued to get worse, it has become clear that this alone is not a sufficient reason to carry on. The fact is, I am not getting better, I am not going to get better, and I will most certainly deteriorate further as time goes on. From a logical standpoint, it is better to simply end things quickly and let any repercussions from that play out in the short term than to drag things out into the long term. You will perhaps be sad for a time, but over time you will forget and begin to carry on. Far better that than to inflict more my growing misery upon you for years and decades to come, dragging you down with me. It is because I love you that I cannot do this to you. You will come to see that it is a far better thing as one day after another passes, during which you will not have to worry about me or even give me a second thought. You will find that your world is better without me in it. To force me to do those things and then participate in the ensuing cover-up is more than any government has the right to demand. Then the same government has turned around and abandoned me. They offer no help and actively block the pursuit of gaining outside help via their corrupt agents at the DEA. Any blame rests with them. Is it any wonder then that the latest figures show 22 veterans killing themselves each day? That is more veterans than children killed at Sandy Hook every single day. Where are the huge policy initiatives? Why isn't the president standing with those families at the State of the Union? Perhaps because we were not killed by a single lunatic, but rather by his own system of dehumanization, neglect, and indifference. He leaves us to where all we have to look forward to is constant pain, misery, poverty, and dishonor. I assure you that when the numbers do finally drop, it will merely be because those who were pushed the farthest have already died. And for what? Bush's religious lunacy? Cheney's ever-growing fortune, and that of his corporate friends? Is this what we destroy lives for? Since then, I have tried everything to fill the void. I tried to move into a position of greater power and influence and to try to right some of these wrongs. I deployed again, where I put a huge emphasis on saving lives. The fact of the matter, though, is any new lives saved do not replace those who were murdered. This is an exercise in futility. This is what brought me to my final actual mission. Not suicide, but a mercy killing. I know how to kill, and I know how to do it so that there's no pain whatsoever. It was quick, and I did not suffer. And above all, now I'm free. I feel no more pain. I have no more nightmares or flashbacks or hallucinations. I am no longer constantly depressed or afraid or worried. I am free. I ask that you be happy for me for that. It is perhaps the best break I could have hoped for. Please accept this and be glad for me. It's clear we can see that the price of war is way too high in many aspects. And we owe it to the hundreds of thousands of veterans that died by suicide to do better by them. If there's one idea I could get all of you to take away from this and keep in the back of your mind, it's that wars don't end when our commander-in-chief brings the troops back home. By then it's too late and tragedy has already occurred and will continue to occur for years to come. When we're losing more heroes after they return home than we're losing in combat, it's really a no-brainer that we have to find a better way. This is why I fully support Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein. Instead of proposing more of the same policies that perpetuate war, she proposes a peace offensive in the war on terror, which we've been losing ever since this day 15 years ago. It is a plan that includes, and I quote, establishing a foreign policy based on diplomacy, international law, human rights, and nonviolent support for democratic movements around the world. Cutting military spending by at least 50% and closing the 700 plus foreign military bases. Ensure a just transition that replaces reductions in military jobs with jobs in renewable energy, transportation, and green infrastructure development. Stopping U.S. financial and military support to human rights abusers. Barring substantial changes in their policy, this would include Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Egypt. End the U.S.'s role as the world's arms supplier. Freeze the bank accounts of countries that are funding terrorism, including the Saudi royal family. It is time to show our vets that we care. Just saying it is nowhere near enough. Since I've been up here speaking, there has been one veteran that has committed suicide. One every 65 minutes. If anyone wants to speak, mic is open.
George lied to us.